everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Strange Days, number 1 through 3. Peter Milligan writes all three, and the art chores are divided between Brendan McCarthy and Brett Ewins. These are some of the best comics of the 80s, I think. I love these comics so much. Bought them off the stands. All three of these creators came up through 2000 AD in England. And during the 80s, early 80s, they came over to America to make more money for the most part, because the comics market in America pays better. This is one of the first things any of these guys did in America. I think this was before any of their DC work. And I imagine they went to Eclipse Comics so they could retain their copyright. Or maybe they were the only publisher that wanted to publish these, because I'm sure Marvel and DC thought these were too weird for them. But this is some amazing shit. Oh, each issue, I should point out, is approved by the Spider of Warning. So, you know that this is going to be high quality. Strange Days number 1. Beautiful Brendan McCarthy cover showing the main character from Freakwave, the serial that began in Vanguard Illustrated 1 through 3, which we looked at last time. So this is going to continue Freakwave and have 2 other series. Really nice stuff. Very 80s. We have a nice little contents page with a new drawing. And I'm pretty sure this is mostly Brendan McCarthy. And it could be a jam, though. But this just shows, you know, where these guys are coming from. It's a blue-skinned Lee Harvey Oswald and Mickey Mouse here is getting shot. And Johnny, Nemo, and Paradax, the 2 other main stories in this collection, are watching on. And John Lennon's there, and he's thinking missed. Because he recently got a bullet, his own bullet. Nice stuff. So here we go. God, I love this stuff. Okay, Freakwave, Chapter 1. And the narrator here is the Spader-Non. And I can't believe my whole life, I've read this comic probably 20 times in my lifetime. Every couple of years I'd take it off the shelf, read it again. I never noticed until this week that that's Spider-Man, this hand puppet, the Spader-Non. Even the lettering looks like the old logo. And he looks like a kind of like punked out Mad Maxed version of Spider-Man, but he's a hand puppet. And I just love the design work, as we'll see in all of these Brendan McCarthy stories. Just amazing, crazy, tribalistic. I don't know where it's coming from. He's got an amazing imagination. So on this chapter, Brett Ewins helps out, and we shall see. It's pretty clearly obvious which pages he does. But this looks like all McCarthy here. And we start off, we're still in this post-apocalyptic world. And things have changed since the first story arc. All the captains now have these like giant head ships. Like this one is a JFK head with 3 eyes, a third eye. And we cut away to the Drifter. He's the protagonist of the Freakwave. And we can already see just like, this art is so amazing. Almost every page Brendan McCarthy's experimenting with some kind of coloring method or a way to just art style. Look at the beautiful like watercolor greens in the background here. Because it's like the poisonous sky, the poisonous air coming from the mainland. Because in this series, everyone has to live on the water because the mainland is all poisoned after the nuclear wars. And then we just see him for a second. Now we go back to the JFK head, and this is the captain, Captain Leaning. And he's a conjoined twin. And the one in the back is kind of very, I don't know, erudite and fancy. He says, "Attention all persons of similar likeness. We are about to embark upon a phantasmagorial peregrination of the heart of, and he says, to the heart of shit, the guy in front. Let's get this head in the clouds." So he's more plain speaking. So the first in command disengages the jugular, and the JFK head takes to the skies. Now we're back to the Drifter, and the Drifter sees this submarine with a giant cathedral built on it and a graveyard even, and kind of looks like a funhouse amusement park thing. And he crashes into it because he's distracted. And his what do you call that? Windsurfing board is destroyed, and he climbs up onto the vessel. And now we cut back away to another one of those flying heads. This one looks like a Mad Hatter. And this belongs to Captain Cracking here. And he's a fancy lad. And his crew is just all nuts. And he's talking to his oracle, this guy in bunny ears. And this guy divines the future by looking at pieces of bread. Stale bread and sour lemon curd to boot. So I guess he reads these crusts of bread and figures out the future. This is his crazy crew. I love how nuts this is. There's a guy here hiding in a Dalek. And we got a Droog from Clockwork Orange. A crazy woman with her tits hanging out. This guy's dressed up with a walrus mask. And he's saying, I am the walrus. Because these guys love John Lennon. All these three artists are very influenced by Lennon and the Beatles. And there you go. So now we're back to the Drifter. He's walking through this submarine graveyard. And he sees a grave for Redcliffe and Williams. They were the two old guys from the first story arc who saved the Drifter's bacon many a time. And he realizes that he's kind of got amnesia. He knows Redcliffe and Williams, but he doesn't quite remember them, how they died. Names are coming to his head, like Tia, the woman from the first arc, and Captain Roaring. But it's like looking through mud, he says. And it's like a knife is scraping the corner of his brain. So he just can't quite remember what the hell happened. And now he meets this kind of like old shaman guy. And I love this. He's wearing a headpiece that's an old TV set. And his head is where the screen would be, his face. And he's, spouting this kind of like cryptic predictions and prophecies. But it's Peter Milligan's, this is when he started out. Peter Milligan was so good when he started out. Just a great writer. It's kind of sad. I haven't liked any of Peter Milligan's latest work in like 20 years. I haven't given him all a chance, but it just seems like it's the law of diminishing returns with that guy. He was so great coming out of the gate when he was young. Everything he did was really damn good. And so this guy's prophecies are kind of like great beatnik poetry. It's kind of all, craziness, but it's well written. And the Drifter's like, keep on talking, old man. I don't want to have to kill you. And of course, he just keeps spouting weirdness. And then all of a sudden, some guy comes up behind the Drifter with a weapon. And he says, hold it right there. And this just shows how crazy these guys were. They were just nuts, the way they told the story. It's all of a sudden the story interrupts and it says, meanwhile, on the film set of Mad Max 7, a bright and barren wilderness of no return, 3 wise road mutants are looking reverently to the north. And they're saying, they're coming. The signs are good. This is amazing. It's just like has nothing to do with the story, really. You never see these guys again. But look how well they're designed. These are just amazing. Just great character designs. Nobody could do this other than McCarthy. I mean, this is so uniquely him. I like how their totem here has a Foster's beer can tied into it with some skulls. So that's the last we'll ever see those guys. They just throw that in and be zany. Peter Milligan and Brendan McCarthy like just playing around. We're back to the Mad Hatter head. And I just love this. I mean, if you look closely, it's beautifully drawn, insanely drawn with the amount of detail. But then if you look closely on top of his hat, there's a little graveyard, there's a little church, there's a tree, a little Mickey Mouse statue. He puts in so much amazing detail to this that he didn't have to. Nobody would have even noticed. I didn't even notice that, I think, the first 5 times I read it. And so we see Cracking again, consulting his oracle. The crusts are curling, Captain. We must be wary of lunatics. So now we're back to the JFK head. Once again, just look at this coloring. So fucking beautiful, the sunset. And just great stuff. So, the JFK head, the captain, is that guy, Captain Leaning. We see him here with his oracle. His oracle's look at this guy. He's a fucking psychotic, mutant, crazy person. And he's got like a second mouth where in his crotch. And he basically is just insane. He's just spouting old song lyrics. Al Jolson. And this guy's his interpreter, kind of. But nothing seems to be making sense. So he's got a pretty shitty oracle. Not the best. Then at the bottom of the ocean, we see another one of these flying heads. This looks like a football helmet. And who should be inside? First of all, our narrator, Spader Non, isn't just the narrator of this tale. He's the oracle for another captain, Captain Mooring. He's not dead from the first story arc. And his body and mind are warped and shattered. His voice a melancholy E-flat minor since his smashed face underwent saxophonic surgery. That's what, I love this. Saxophonic surgery. So that's the end of this chapter. We have a little one-pager, Tales of the Fourth Dimension. Oh, I'm sorry, Tales from the Fourth Dimension, featuring Hush and Whisper. I don't know if we've ever seen these two again or saw them before. It's kind of like this fun little strip. They're just spouting this, I don't know, kind of philosophy stuff, weird, like, fun things to talk about, about reality and existence. And they're running through this great Ditko landscape. That's the main reason for this story. I think that Brett Ewins just wanted to draw this beautiful Ditko stuff, and he does it really well. I like this a lot. Just basically it's a little gag. Now we got the Johnny Nemo, part 1 of the Orb of Harmony. And this is drawn by Brett Ewins. And I'm sorry, I forgot to point out in this comic, this is obviously Brett Ewins. You could probably tell yourself, but I just wanted to point that out. Most of it's McCarthy, it seems to be. But whenever cracking comes in, Brett Ewins draws it. Okay, back to Johnny Nemo. Johnny Nemo is this, kind of a cliche by now. He's like the cyberpunk hard-boiled detective in the future. But he's very just decadent. He's not like most hard-boiled private dicks. He's a pretty decadent guy. Kind of just a ne'er-do-well, And he really just wants to get fucked up all the time and do as little work as possible. But he's really good at his job. So he gets a call from his robot gal Friday, Kalina. And he's in the middle of a spa day. He's just chilling. She says, hey, you got to meet this guy. I got a job for you. So he leaves the place. In the parking lot, the parking lot attendant pulls out a gun. Turns out he's an assassin. He misses Johnny, and Johnny shoots him in the head. So Johnny gets the best of him. Then he aims his car up towards the higher levels of the city where all the bigwigs live. Because he has a meeting with this guy. He's a counselor. He's basically like the in charge of the foreign diplomatic corps. And he fills in Johnny what the problem is. He says that there's the Orb of Harmony has been stolen. The Orb of Harmony was given to us by this alien race called the Syrians. We were at war with the Syrians a while ago, and when we made peace with them, they gave us one of their most sacred religious relics, the Orb of Harmony, as a sign of peace, as a gesture of goodwill. Now, the Syrians are about to visit in a day or two. So if that Orb of Harmony is not where it should be, is lost, they're going to declare war on Earth. So this is a serious business. He calls in Johnny because they know that the League of Adam is responsible. And they're kind of like a Earthman bigot organization. They want to kill all the aliens. Only Earthmen deserve to live in the universe. So they've stolen the Orb of Harmony. They just don't know where it is. And he calls in Johnny because he can't even trust his own men in the government or in the police forces because the League of Adam has infiltrated them. So, Kalina fills him in on some of the League of Adam, how they would love to start a war because they want us go throughout the galaxy killing all aliens. She also tells Johnny that Inspectors Stubb and Flask are there to talk to him. And he just says, tell him to go stuff it. Fuck him. Then we see a nice little detail of this future world. In the future, these ad bots are allowed to latch to your flying car for up to 2 minutes and spew their pitch to you, their advertisement. And I guess you're not allowed to. You just have to put up with it. They have the right to do that. But Johnny doesn't give a shit. And Johnny just blows it away. A cop car sees him, and he says, you have just violated Freedom of Speech Act 2123. Pull over. And when they pull up alongside Johnny, these two sky cops, he says, take it. And he blows them away. And it turns out Johnny knew they weren't really cops. They were more assassins sent to kill him because they said the wrong number for that law, that statute. So then he goes to this bar, and this old bartender guy who runs the place, he's like the guy everyone goes to for information. So he's filling him in about the League of Adam and all that stuff. And he knows what the leader of the League of Adam, his name is Club, and he tells him where he lives. So Johnny Nemo heads over to see this Club fellow. And it's weird, when he gets there, the robot butler is just like, come on in, we've been expecting you. So he kind of thought he'd have to fight his way through there. But he's very welcoming, this Club guy. And it seems like Club, he kind of offers, he extends an offer to Johnny to join them. He's like, you'd be perfect for the League of Adam. Why don't you join us? And he's all like, cut the crap. Where's the orb? Johnny is not going to join these fuckers. And he tells him, he says, we threw it in the bottom of the River Thames. I guess in the future, the River Thames is like just polluted sludge. So even if they dredged the River Thames, it would take way too long to find the orb. And the Syrians would get here and still declare war. So he's like, I won. And he offers again. He's like, would you like to join us? And he's like, here's your answer, creep. And he beats up the bodyguards. But then all of a sudden, when he leaves the place, Stubb and Flask are there, the inspectors. And they're like, come on down to the station with us, buddy. We got to talk about that parking lot attendant that you shot. And then it says, next, the awful specter of sodomy, which is quite a cryptic warning about next issue. This is a crazy one-pager, crazy foam by Milligan and McCarthy. And just McCarthy showing that he can draw any crazy style. I mean, he's so good at this realistic style, but look at this. It's like modern art craziness. And it's pretty much just like a poem. It's very like abstract, weird. It's a poem, yeah. And so was born the creature of the fright, this angel of the razor. Can't think of an ending, and Derek's on me blazer. So Milligan would do this all the time, just undercut his narrative. He was just having a good time. He would sometimes just like build up these elaborate stories and just pull the rug from me and just be like, hey, I don't really care how this ends. So here we have the third story series in this comic, Paradax by Milligan and McCarthy. He's like a kind of a skeevy, low-rent superhero. And at the beginning of the story, our protagonist, Al Cooper, who is Paradax, he's sitting in a bar, and this good old boy, he's like, hey, you're that Paradax superhero, ain't you? And the newspaper says Al Cooper is Paradax. Apparently, Al's manager, Chow, he's kind of a sleazy guy. He outed Al as Paradax to the newspapers just to make a little money for the exclusive, you know? So he's like, ah, shit. And so this cowboy beats the shit out of Al. He just doesn't like him. Thinks he's a pansy. He doesn't have any powers when he doesn't have his outfit, so it's not hard to beat him up. So he's back home with his girlfriend, and she's a really good girlfriend. She's giving him a back rub and making him feel better. And then they're watching a TV show that night, and it's the Andy Warhol Nothing Special. And it's, I guess Andy Warhol has a talk show, and he's interviewing Paradax. So they're going to watch to see how Al did. And he tells Andy kind of his origin story. So we see in a flashback, Al Cooper is a taxi cab driver. Here's his boss, Chow, who becomes his manager later on. And he takes the book home. I like this little aside here, a little chicken fat. Songs of the Prisoner. And it's Patrick McGowan. They just like to have a lot of inside fun, crazy jokes in their comics too. So this book is one of those like compartment books where people hide things in. And he finds the outfit, the Paradax costume. And he realizes that he can change his density when he wears this outfit. His hand goes right through a can of beer, but he can't control it, so the beer can is stuck on his hand. And so because he's distracted by trying to get this beer can off, he steps on the cat who attacks him, claws him, and then he trips. And then right as his girlfriend is walking in the door, he falls into all this equipment, and it's all phasing through him. The TV's half inside of him, the VCR is in his hip. And that's how we have the first chapter. This is an ad, but it's an original new piece of art, so it's kind of a story page. This shows their holy trinity, Leninitis, Cadictius, Dictodius. Because these guys love, if you read their comics enough, there's always little homages to Lenin and Ditko and Philip K. Dick. That's their co-pilots. And these are the artist and writer. Okay, second issue. Strange Days #2. Beautiful Brett Ewins cover showing off Johnny Nemo. I love this cover. This is just drawn in a typical style. And then the background of the city, it's just like blocks of color without outlines. Looks really good. We have a nice little front piece of Paradax by McCarthy. And then we have the second chapter of Freakwave. Once again, we're hanging out with Captain Kraken and his crazy crew. And the Oracle is prophesizing again. And he has this, like, the Rabbit Man warps off into his Oracle frenzy. And words become unintelligible. And his mind is warped by the electric fog from the mainland. So he goes into these fits, basically. And it's just nuts. Just the change in art style. And then I love this vision he sees in his head. This is like, I don't know, some flying head. And it's a psychedelic landscape. He sees this eagle flying, which is symbolic of the American totem. The central figure itself, with its Jungian juxtaposition of Christian and tribal religious archetypes, a kind of burnt-out mechanical icon for our times. It's just really interesting. It has nothing to do with the plot, really. But just to show, like, Milligan's writing. I mean, every caption here, I wish I could read all of them to you, but I can't for copyright reasons, but just really good writing. It's talking to the audience, to the reader, just flights of beautiful wordplay. You could tell he just loves the sound of certain words. So just amazing stuff. So Captain Kraken, I guess all these captains are converging in the South because there's this mutant messiah they all want. I guess they think he'll give him power to conquer the world. He basically, though, wants the messiah because he thinks it's his brother. He thinks he's related to this messiah. So he's headed to him and all the other captains are heading towards the House of Dreams in the South, which I think is Australia. Once again, we get to see, just look how beautiful these colors are. This green here, I think it's watercolor. Just outstanding. So we're back to the football head, and Spader Non is talking to Roaring. And I like how Roaring hasn't changed. He's just this angry Spitfire and just his crazy pirate dialect. He speaks just like a stereotypical pirate guy. By thunder, roaring will be the nightmare captain, and he'll tear the gizzards from every manjack of them who don't believe it. So that's how he talks. Those who create the new Messiah control the new reality. So that's the prophecy. We have this little aside here, and we're back to the Mad Hatter ship. These two guys are in charge of the mouth of the Mad Hatter. That's where all the excrement and waste from the ship goes out every day. And just them having a funny little conversation. Really, once again, nothing to do with the plot. As you could probably already tell, Milligan really doesn't care about the plot. Freakwave started as a kind of homage to Mad Max, and they've totally forgotten that by now. They're just like, we don't care anything about doing that crazy stuff or action stuff. We just want to go nuts. And in the left eye of the Mad Hatter, this just shows how he just goes off. This has nothing to do with the story. We never see this guy again. And this guy is thinking, I suppose I should go tell Kraken we're about to dock, but I can't be bothered. I feel strangely lethargic, as though the age of apathy has clasped my very soul. And we never see this guy again. So just a weird little aside. Now we're at the House of Dreams. All the captains have convened. This is so nice to see McCarthy design all these crazy captains. He's so good at that, making these crazy designs. Captain Leaning, he brought his crazy oracle, and once again he's just spewing craziness. Yes, we have no nirvanas. He's still singing crazy lyrics, and he's kind of going crazy. He's going wild, so he's basically just he's ruining the party. Everyone's all like, get that piece of shit out of here. He's just annoying. And so we leave the House of Dreams, and once again another just vision the oracles are having. And now we're back to the Drifter on that submarine. Once again, it almost looks like cell animation coloring here. He just keeps whipping stuff out of his arsenal. It's so good. So we see the person that had a weapon on Drifter. It's this like dog-faced guy in a helmet. His name's Biffo. And he's got the drop on him. And the shaman, the old shaman with the TV headset, he says, for Captain Roaring to be killed, the Drifter must be a dying. And the Drifter says, I gotta be dead before I can kill Roaring? What kind of half-ass crap is that, old man? I ain't dying for nothing. And the old man says, poor Drifter, you doesn't understand. Don't you see? You are dead. And then all of a sudden, there's this like cyclone of craziness around the Drifter. It's just nuts. It's like this crazy evil clown playing cards, little signs saying weird cryptic messages. God will strike you with Russians. And all these hands reaching at him. And that's just the end of this episode. And it really makes no sense. And you'll see in the future, the third episode, it really doesn't explain anything. Back to Johnny Nemo. Johnny's come up with a plan for dealing with this Orb of Harmony situation. But unfortunately, he's stuck at the cop station. Stubb and Flask took him in. And I guess there's no justice in this future. Basically, if you have enough money, you pay your way out of jail. If you don't, you stay in jail until you can come up with the money or not. And then you're just stuck there. So they basically say, Johnny, we don't have to make up any evidence or anything. We just throw you in jail. And you're going to be there a long time. It's going to be a lot of money you probably don't have. But we can make a little arrangement. You scratch our backs and we'll bend over backwards to help you. And Johnny gives him this knowing look. And this is what separates Johnny Nemo from any other hard-boiled private eye like Mike Hammer or any of those guys. Because he says, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week, but what the heck, I was free. As he leaves the cop station, that's what Johnny's thinking. So basically, these guys sodomized him. And that was his ticket out of jail. they're like, hey, we can have a little arrangement. And Johnny's just this unflappable dude. He's just like, whatever. It hurt a little, but I'm out. So another assassin tries to take out Johnny. This has nothing to do with the League of Man. He's got this enemy named Jensen Boulevard. He basically gets 3 assassination attempts a day. So he's used to this by now. He vows to take care of this Jensen guy as soon as he's done with this mission. So he gives Kalina, his robot, a series of calculations. Says, hey, figure this out for me. And she tells him, the answer to your question is 300 years. So we'll find out what that means. So Johnny heads to the really sleazy part of town, the poor part of town. And there's this guy there who runs a cryogenics lab. Now, it's out of business, technically, because cryogenics has been outlawed. But Johnny says, I know you got a working cryo unit in the back. So I want you to put me in it for 300 years. So he says, bye-bye, Johnny. And he puts him in the cryo unit. And then as soon as it feels like a second later, Johnny opens it up and 300 years have passed. And the world is very different. It appears that the Orb of Harmony was never found in time. And the Syrians did attack Earth and won. Because we see posters, propaganda posters of the Syrians. The city's devastated. As I mentioned, the whole Earth is. Because we're a conquered race. So the spaceship says you're an unregistered person, and they beam him up. I kind of like this. He's getting beamed up, and it feels like it's, stretching his molecules. And it's the Syrians. And they're obviously treat the humans as livestock. They're just talking about him like he's an animal. It's like, oh, we should crossbreed him with a dog-faced Mamosian. Or we should maybe do research on him. But he's just, Johnny Nemo, just can't help himself. This is him being diplomatic. The first thing he says to him is, have any of you repulsive slime buckets got a cigarette? I left all mine in the 30th century. So there he is, stuck in the future. This is another weird little one-pager. And 3 wise men. And this is by all 3 of the guys. And it's just this weird, these 3 characters, and they're just kind of spouting their philosophies. Braylock's Hungarian gynecologist, philosopher, and meddler in the unknown. We see the Grim Leper and Father Ohannes. And he's talking about Sartre and Luther. Farting in the winds of fate. He's this angry priest. So it's just kind of silly. But, once again, showing off amazing art and Milligan's knack for wordplay. It's really solid writing. Here we got Paradax again. He's still on the Andy Warhol show telling his origin. And we're back to where we left off. So the girlfriend kind of helps him decide what to do with his new powers and his suit. And he does a little experiment. He phases through the wall to his neighbor. And he says, oh, hi, Miss Killjoy. Just trying out this weird costume I found. What do you think? And she's completely unfazed by his phasing through the wall. She's like, beat it, Al. Can't you see I'm busy? And next time, knock before you walk through the wall. And she's a dominatrix, and she's doing her work on this guy, this poor guy. Well, she probably loves it, actually. And then Al's contemplating what he's going to do. And at first he thinks he might rob banks or become, just steal money. But he's like, I want to be a star. I don't want to be on the run constantly. So it says, so Al Cooper, his eyes glazed by visions of fame, wealth, and infidelity. I like how he's kind of like this sleazy guy who's just like, yeah, if I'm famous, I could cheat on my girlfriend all I want. I'd have all these groupies. Even though she's great, and he should be totally grateful that she goes out with them. So Al goes out for the first time on duty as Paradax, and everyone just makes fun of him, and they pick on him. And he's like, oh, shit, this is not what I thought it would be. So his girlfriend gets him this cool jacket she found, so he doesn't look so sissy-ish or goofy. And when he tells his boss, Chow, at the taxi company, Chow's like, I'll be your manager. We'll both make a lot of money. And Al's pretty stupid, so he agrees. And then we also see a flashback to his first, supervillain. This guy, V2 Pinhead, escaped from the mental institution. And he's already killed like 20 guys. He's just this really unstoppable, super strong guy. V2 Pinhead goes to this lab, and there's this mad scientist type there. And he has invented this thing called the Minutemen. Just add 1 drop of water to 1 grain of Minutemen dust, and you get a walking, talking, real-life, human living doll. He's quoting Cliff Richard there. But 1 whole minute... Oh, I'm sorry, for 1 whole minute. So these little guys will come to life for 1 minute. 1 bowl of Minutemen dust is enough to make thousands of instant men. So he breaks into this place, kills the doctor, the scientist, and steals the Minutemen. And Paradax goes to the cops. We find out that he's heading for the UN. There's going to be this peace conference tomorrow, and they figure out that's what he's up to. He's going to disrupt this peace conference and set the world to war. Another beautiful 1-pager, just a pinup by Brendan McCarthy. This is once again, just a totally different style. It looks very Japanese, like some crazy character from Shonen Jump that never was published. It's just amazing. I wish there was like 400 issues of this comic. I would have read them every month since. Number 3, cover by Brendan McCarthy of Paradax. Now all the series are going to wrap up here. So we have the last chapter of Freakwave. This is just nuts. It's like the Drifter is being held aloft by these cherubic, macrocephalic Prince angels. They kind of look like Prince with this giant head. I don't know if he was trying to make it look like Prince, but when I was a kid, when I first read this, I was just like, what? That does seem like Prince. And so things are getting even more abstract in this comic. The whole idea of much of a plot is having a plot is just they're done. So so the narrator in the captions is even talking to the Drifter in the second person. He's like, but hear this, Drifter. You will ride again. You are my son, my aerosol, and the air stinks of foul captains, a plague of outrageous metaphors on all their heads and houses. And so Captain Roaring makes his move. He's down in Australia where all those captains are meeting, and he's going to crash their party. All the captains are down there discussing the Messiah, how they can find him, what they're going to do when they catch him. And then Captain Roaring's football head just rams into the Mad Hatter head and makes it fall to the ground. And then he crashes the party, shows up. Abandon all popes, ye who enter here, for these are the fallen captains, summoned from the sludge of damnation by Roaring, the fallen captain, who still stalks the seaways, kept flesh only by his hatred and his awesome insanity. So, Peter Milligan's really just loving the sound of words. So he shows up and tells them all, I've got these dead sea captains resurrected, and they're going to kick your ass. And then I'm going to find the Messiah, and then I'm going to conquer the world and kill all you and be the undisputed ruler of the 7 seas. And then here we go. So we have this big climax we've been leading up to. And then Milligan just pulls the carpet out from under us. And this is just, it turns into this. Just this weird drawing of this person. Kind of looks like Divine. And now it's that omniscient voice talking to the Drifter again. Insanity is the devil, you know. Sanity, that is, my divine blueprint of how things should tick over, held sway for a few millennium. But now it's stopped, and that's where you come in. The fact is, Drifter, you are the new Messiah. You will return to the rabid pit, remade and remodeled, to fight the vessel of the devil's insanity, Captain Rory. And so, yeah, just look at this. And I love this. It's like some modern art, whatever this is supposed to be. Just amazing design work. This border here, it makes no sense. And, you know, that's what they wanted. And then I love this. So at the bottom of the page, it says, meanwhile. And that's the end of the comic. So they're just totally fucking with us. They're like, yeah, you expected this like kind of Mad Max on water story. And then, you know, 6 episodes later, it's just like, what the fuck? I mean, I love it. I want them to fuck with me. It's really great. I remember as a kid, I was a little disappointed by it. I was like, what? But now rereading these as an adult, I love the, like, just the Dada playfulness of this all. Here's a one-pager, Tales from Utopia. And this guy is like the high pope of the Church of the Holy Cow, talking about it looks like a fast food restaurant. He's like, we don't give you artificial flavors or preservatives. In fact, we don't give you carbohydrates or calories. We're not serving anything. They're basically serving up starvation. And we see even their workers are starving to death. All these people dying of hunger. And he's like, come on down to the Church of the Holy Cow. And that's, I'm pretty sure that's McCarthy. And now we're back to the last chapter of Johnny Nemo. And Johnny Nemo's still stuck in the future. The Syrians are about to have their way with him. But all of a sudden he disappears. He gets teleported onto an Earth ship of the Human Resistance. And he's talking to this guy in charge of the Human Resistance. And he susses out that he's a League of Adam guy, 300 years down the road. And he says, I don't want to rain on your parade, but, it's the League of Adam are the whole ones who started all this. Your predecessors 300 years ago, they started this war with the Syrians, and that's why the Earth is so fucked now. And he doesn't believe it. He's like, preposterous, throw the traitor out. He's nothing but a Syrian lackey. He's got a lisp, obviously. That wasn't me. So he doesn't want to hear the truth. He throws Johnny right out of the ship. And Johnny luckily lands on this plump Syrian, which cushions his fall. And he happens to be right near the time port, which is fortuitous. So he forces his way in and sets the controls for 300 years earlier, plus a little. And I like this. We see like the time travel as this weird collage of photos and such. So he goes 20 minutes before the orb is stolen, he appears. That's the plan. He's just going to stop the orb of harmony from ever being thrown in the Thames. But this shows how Johnny Nemo is. He's just such a ne'er-do-well. He decides, hey, I got enough time to have a fudge massage before I get to work. So he has this beautiful fudge massage, and it was almost late. Even though he did this whole time travel thing, he's almost late to get the orb. And he almost loses them before they get to the Thames. So his whole plan, he's such a loser. So he does find the guys as they're about to throw the orb into the Thames on this bridge. And he kills them and gets the orb. Goes back to Counselor Stevens, the diplomatic guy. And he basically has to listen to the whole spiel that he heard 3 issues ago in the first chapter. Because, he's gone back in time. So he's like, we got to get that orb of harmony, or the Syrians would declare war. And he says, how about 3 seconds? Here it is. And he's like, what? How did you just found out it was stolen. How do you have it? So whatever, he saves the day, gets his paycheck, and saves the world. And he calls up Kalina. He says, get the pure alcohol body drip assembled, Kalina. Johnny's coming home. We have a nice little 1-page pinup drawn by a painting by Brett Ewins. And it's kind of a parody of those Playboy centerfolds. It's like Einstein's blue baby. Relatively speaking, Alfie's got a scientific body of pure photoelectronic bliss. and she's bound to make a quantum leap straight into your heart. I did forget to mention, too, I just wanted to talk about Brett Ewins' art. I mean, I love this stuff. I loved Johnny Nemo as a kid, but I didn't, like, go hunting down Brett Ewins' stuff, but he's just such a good artist. I mean, this is great cartooning. I mean, nothing flashy, just amazing. Everything's drawn perfectly. He's got a great imagination, great layouts, good stuff. I mean, we all know Brendan McCarthy's a genius, but Brett Ewins is pretty damn good. So now Paradax is back in his flashback, talking about his confrontation with V2 Pinhead. And V2 Pinhead is way out of his league. I mean, he tries to punch him, Paradax, and it doesn't even faze him. And he clogs Paradax, almost like knocks his head off. Luckily, he's got the power to become insubstantial, so V2 Pinhead can't pin him that often, and because, I mean, he would be dead. He'd be a bowl of jelly if he could. That's how strong V2 Pinhead is. So, V2 Pinhead takes out those Minutemen and some water. So he's going to get all those little buddies to help him. And Paradax comes up with an idea. He runs up to the guy and blows the Minutemen into his mouth. And then obviously he's got bodily fluids which interact with the Minutemen dust. And all these Minutemen pop out of his body. Thousands of them. Ripping him to shreds. I like all the Minutemen, they're saying, okay, men, let's get him. Okay, men, let's get him. And they all look like little mini Sergeant Rocks. They're smoking cigars. And, yeah, the Pinhead is done. V2 Pinhead cannot take that. Getting ripped up by 1,000 soldiers. So the peace talks go on. Paradax saves the day. Now he's got to confront Chow. He's got to get out of this contract. He realizes his girlfriend's like, you can't. This is no good. Of course, Chow is all like, whatever, get a lawyer. You're not getting out of this contract. But then that good old boy from the first issue who beat up Paradax shows up. Now he likes Paradax because Paradax, you know, is all over the news. He saved the world. And he basically says to Chow, he's like, you're going to rip up that contract or I'm going to rip up your face. So Chow does. And Al is free. And has a happy ending. We have this like kind of farewell page where Peter Milligan just kind of wrote this strange, kind of like a poem once again, a prosy poem. And that looks to be McCarthy. Just a nice, very crazy McCarthy painting. The moral of the story, and possibly of this comic book too, being don't mess around with metaphors. They'll only kick you in the allegoricals. So that's it, unfortunately, for Strange Days, for the weirdness that was Strange Days. And I wish it lasted longer, but it did not. So here we go. Strange Days 1 through 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you come back here to the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.